Well, hello, this is Ed Sanderson with Ducerus College Solution, and we are being joined by our subject matter expert once again, Debbie Elder. Debbie, how are you today?
I am good, Ed. Thank you. How are you?
Good. We have an interesting topic to discuss. What I wish I knew before my first semester at college. Debbie, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and then we'll jump in.
Hi, everybody. I raised two daughters and sent them off to college. And that's when I got super interested in this whole college planning process, because it is a nightmare and it's not for the timid or the meek. I met Ed several years ago when I became a college planner and did that for several years and learned a lot. And one of the things that made it so interesting to me is we had just gone through it ourselves as a family. And so I could really relate. And I had my daughters as guinea pigs, don't tell them. And they really gave me some good insight. I've left college planning, but have continued in the educational business. I currently run an elementary school in Richmond, Texas. And that might seem like a big jump to those listening, but really it's not. I had 15 middle and high schools, then I did college planning. And then I had an opportunity to kind of back all that knowledge up and feed my first through fifth graders everything they need to know to be successful at every level as they move through their educational journey. So I'm excited to talk about this. I have lots of information to share, and thanks again for having me, Ed.
You're welcome. And just a little bit more a backstory. Debbie and I worked on a course about how students can be successful in high school and college, and you can get more information about that at the end of the video. And Debbie will tell you also how you can get a hold of her if you want to ask some questions specifically about your student and their situation. So you got to stay to the end to get that information. First day on campus, for an extended period of time, you're away from home. When you say getting the lay of the land, what are you referring to there?
What that means is being really clear what the resources are, both on and off campus. Knowing where's the first and local hospital. How do you get there if you need to? Where are the people on campus that can help you with things that you might need? Just really getting familiarized. Think of going on a trip somewhere and you're going to stay 2 weeks in a new country. You need to know how to get around. Where's the grocery stores? Where's the movie theater? Whatever you need to know that your interests are, it's really good to spend some time doing that. It's also not a bad idea. We back it up even into the summer to get in touch with your roommates and figure out, who's bringing the microwave and who's, so you're not doubling up on things, who's bringing the television, and really get to sort of maybe set some boundaries and really prepare a really safe container for you and your roommates so everybody can get along for the entire school year. That's super important. And really, I know both my daughters became RAs on campus, and every September, and my daughters are tough, but every September I would get calls from them almost in tears because of the lack of awareness and skill sets that these kids were showing up with that they really did not know. For example, simple things like how to prepare an Excel document, how to actually save their work in Word, how to set up a file, things that you're just like, are you kidding me? But they had not been exposed to. And frustrating. And also little things like how to do laundry and how to plan their day and manage their time and make sure that they were getting to class on time, but not coming right out of their bed. It was just, a whole bunch of things that to them, I think were so second nature that they didn't understand why it was such a struggle for some of these other students.
Let's talk about this subject, pre-reading. How is that something that you have found that people wish they had known before they showed up at college for their first semester?
I'm going to be super transparent. So many, many years ago when I went to college, it's not like high school at all. In high school, my teachers had weekly assignments and we got tested frequently and they kind of kept us accountable. Then I got to college and a couple of things went on. One, there was a bar on campus. And two, nobody checked any work for the whole semester. I was like, this is awesome. So I didn't do any work. And then all of a sudden I had midterms and I was starting off way behind the eight ball and it did not serve well. It took me my whole college career to undo that first semester. So what I would suggest to those listening to this, and I'm not going to suggest it, I'm going to demand it because it makes all the difference. Get your syllabuses, figure out your chapters, pre-read. So here's what happens with your brain. If you don't get it ready for information that's new, if you don't prepare it, the information comes in and it kind of bounces off. It doesn't know where to go, right? So you've kind of got to get it ready. It's like a farmer who goes out to plow his field. If he just goes out and starts plowing, that dirt is really hard, like your brain. It's not ready. You've got to till the soil, you got to water it, you got to fertilize it, and then your seeds will grow. But if I just throw a bunch of seeds onto an unfertilized and untilled ground, some might grow, but not many. So the way you get your brain ready is you read the information before you go to class. So when you get to class, you can check your notes, you can take notes alongside of the notes you've already taken, and you've got really good questions for your professors, and I'll explain to you why that's important in a minute. And you get an opportunity to really check what you've learned, go back to your dorm room, rewrite your notes, and then you now own that information. You don't have to go back and cram because it's yours, just like you know your name. That's the whole point, is to get this stuff so you're never having to cram, but you're always ready for the pop quiz. Well, that isn't coming, but if it was, you'd be ready. And I think that's really important. It also allows you to feel like you've got some control in a place that you really don't have a whole lot of control. So being able to feel you're on top of your academics can really set your mind at ease and allow you to keep up your grades.
Homesickness can kick in. So I think a lot of young people get excited about the idea of going off to college, but sometimes they don't really understand the emotional impact it can have. So talk a little bit about that.
This is interesting. When we dropped off my daughters at college, they both went the same year. One of my daughters was rooming with a girl who had been there for 3 weeks. She was a track and field star and been recruited and was there. And so we get to the dorm room and her stuff is in a paper sack in the closet. She is not unpacked. She's been there for 3 weeks. I turned to my husband, I went, I don't think she's going to make it. She might have been there physically, but she was still living at home with her boyfriend in her mind and was going regularly back and forth to see him. And I was right. She didn't make it past the third week of September. She just couldn't handle it. And so what I noticed that first year that my daughters were in school, I didn't let them come home for the first 6 weeks. I just said no. And I wasn't being mean. I missed them terribly. But I knew that if they came home and maintained their relationship with their friends here, they weren't building new ones where they needed to build them. And if you wait until the first 4 to 6 weeks to start making friendships, they've kind of already been formed. Now, that doesn't mean you can't, join a group or make friends. It's just more difficult. So when you go to college, think about it, get your head straight, decide who you want to be with, have some boundaries, have some clarity about people that you want to spend time with, and then go after those and make introductions and be gregarious and network and learn what people are doing. And there's lots of clubs to get involved in, and being able to have that balance is really important. You have a lot of time in college. Typically you take 12 to 15 hours. How many did you take in high school? Like 40. So there's a lot of time. And if you don't use that time wisely, the busy person gets things done. So there was a level with my daughters. In fact, I said to them before they went, I expect you to work from 9 to 5 every day. And they did. And I said, I'll include going to the gym in that. But what I didn't want was for them to roll out of bed in their sweatpants and go into their first class and then come home and have another nap. That I knew would be a disaster for them. And so we set some real clear expectations about what I expected. And I was paying tuition. I had no problem setting up my expectations. And that allowed them to develop some really good work habits. And here's what they gained from that. They never worked in the evenings on homework, nor did they work on the weekends. They enjoyed their evenings and their weekends because they had solid time during the day to get their stuff done.
Staying safe is important. Talk to the folks on why that's an important thing to really think about before you show up on the first semester of college.
Where my daughters went to school was a dry campus, where they were in a dry county. So all the parties that took place were off campus. You had to drive there. And there was several opportunities where young girls, 18, 19 years old, drank way too much alcohol, blacked out, didn't remember stuff. And my daughters felt like they were taking care more often than they were really having fun when they went to these parties. And they were, again, so surprised and shocked by these young women who basically didn't know anybody, but allowed themselves to be put in such a compromising position with people, again, that they didn't know. So it's just using your head, being smart, making sure that you are presenting yourself as the person you want to be. It's really hard to come back from a bad reputation the first couple of weeks on school. Everybody wants to have fun. I'm just encouraging our listeners to just weigh that with safety and to make sure that you kind of know where you're at all times. You trust the driver if you're not driving yourself. You're being safe with alcohol and drug use. And you're just making sure you're taking care of yourself so that remember, you're at school to learn. Partying is not really the whole purpose of why you're at college. So just keeping a balance, having fun, but being, as I said, safe about it and staying in control, which I think is really important.
Why is getting along with your professors or having a relationship with them something you want to get to right away?
Well, they're human, and being involved in education for as long as I have been involved in it. If you're writing between a B and a C, and the professor only knows you as a number, you're probably going to hit the C. If your professor knows you've been into tutorials, that you hang out with the TA, that you emailed him a couple of questions, maybe you've asked some really good questions in his class or her class, and they might tip the scales a little bit. It's just being smart. My daughters were lucky enough to attend a very small college that they thoroughly enjoyed. They got to be really good friends with their professors, and that helped them when it came time for internships, for getting jobs in their field. They were able to sort of tap into their networks, which was invaluable. I think that anytime you can make a relationship with someone who's got that much control over your life, it's really important. My youngest daughter was the valedictorian the year that they graduated. And the only reason why my older daughter wasn't valedictorian or salutatorian was because she had one professor who refused to give A's. And this was before you could rate your professor, and they had some of those things. But how ridiculous is that? Natasha did fantastic work, but because of this one professor's philosophy, she was out of the running, and her little sister took that position, maybe not from her, but got it. So just be real mindful that those people that are in your life, anytime you have any say on how that relationship can go, I really encourage our students to really capitalize on that opportunity. It's not hard, and it's not, kissing up to the professor. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's simply doing your job. But if you're going to do your work, at least it can be acknowledged, and take advantage of their office hours. Just pop your head in and introduce yourself. It's worth it.
A relationship before there's a challenge is better than coming to the table with, I've got a problem. They may be more inclined to listen and be open if you've established a routine or relationship with them before a challenge may even arise, right?
Agreed.
Study groups. And I would say that they're important in a lot of different ways, but particularly if you're in a state university where there's a lot of students in a class, how important is it to establish, and what should you be looking for when you're putting one together?
Well, I think that's a real personal decision. When I had my middle and high schools, we taught an accelerated learning program that allowed our students to dramatically reduce their study time if they studied in groups. You have to pick really good people that you trust, and you have to follow a very specific guideline. And I don't have time to go into that today, but if you're interested in learning about that, I'd be happy to share that with you at another time. But there are ways to really maximize the use of others, because what we know in learning is if you have a piece of it, adding to that piece you already have is really easy, instead of having to learn it all by yourself, right? So the idea being that everyone learns a piece, and then you share the pieces you've learned, and it just allows you to make sense of information. College isn't hard. There's just a lot more volume of what you need to learn. So if you can find some people you trust that take good notes, that are able to explain their piece to you, the ability to accelerate how quickly you get through that material is phenomenal. And I think that is something that everybody who's going to college should learn to take advantage of. Just be careful on who you choose to put in your group. That's all.
I've heard this from another of high school students, that they get put in these groups for a project and people either don't show up, they don't do their fair share. So if you have the option, what should you be looking for, and how do you pick them?
You want to look for people who show up to class, who appear to be somewhat organized, that have a methodology of asking the right questions. Maybe they sit up front. There's certain things to look for. And I'm going to say, Ed, it's tough that first semester as you're getting to know a bunch of new people. I will tell you a little trick that my daughters use very successfully second semester moving forward, is they would figure out who was going to be in their classes, and they would make their groups. If there was going to be a group project, they'd already talked to people that they trusted before the semester even started. So if you came to me and I didn't really want to work with you because you let me down last semester, I could look you right in the eye and say, oh, Ed, thank you so much. I've already been invited to a group, which was the truth. I just happened to set it up a couple of weeks ago. So I think that really helps. That first semester, just be aware and hope that you pick. I know both my daughters got in groups their first semester where they did 90% of the work. We had that, Sunday night phone call, almost in tears again. Mom, they haven't said any of their stuff. And I said, well, you can decide to let your grades suffer or do the work and not work with them again. And that's what they did. They just decided to submit the work, do a really good job, and bypass that person the next time it was a group project.
Things that I wish I knew before my first semester in college, you nailed that. So thanks for sharing that information with us.
Well, thank you, Ed. This was awesome as always. And good luck, everyone. College should be fun, but it also should be something that you have an opportunity to truly learn, sharpen your skills, and get ready to use them in the workforce. So get that balance going and let us help you with that.
Exactly. Thanks, Debbie.